If Booker gets hot, Draymond's going to see him. If Gee is having a problem staying in front of fill in the blank, let's say Brooks for argument's sake, well, then they're going to mix and match.
All right, I want to rat-a-tat-tat a couple quick concepts at the beginning with you, Nick. First one, is there any sense from people in the organization, it's almost as if they're playing with house money tonight? Obviously, they want to win. But is there any kind of – because that was such a – look, I know it's not a real playoff win, but that was a special win the other night.
100% it's house money. And, Joe, if they can get this one.
So if they do, is there any world where they might consider just not really dressing all the dudes for game one and playing it out? Like, I hate to get too ahead of myself. Well, because you would give yourself a lot more time.
Mr. Shasky, come on now.
I'm just asking.
The standard is the standard for this team. And I think part of the reason they were so proud of what they accomplished the other night in LA is that they did it knowing that there were plenty of people that thought, let's just punt this whole year. So if we're rat-a-tat-tatting, I would tell you no.
Okay.
If they win tonight, they'll be out there on Sunday afternoon, and they're going to try like hell to push OKC as much as they can.
All right. Draymond tweaked the knee. Kristaps tweaked the ankle. Steph rolled an ankle, was hobbling with the knee. Where are we at with each of these guys heading into tonight?
We've got shoot around here in Phoenix in a couple hours. It has felt like everybody will still be out there. I would tell you anecdotally, Porzingis was limping pretty bad in the locker room. This is into a dome after the game, but everybody's going to try to give whatever they can. It would surprise me if anybody isn't out there. I think everybody's going to try like hell to make it happen, and then they'll just see where everybody's at throughout.
Is this a new injury for KP? And what exactly is the injury from your estimation?
It just looked like his ankle wasn't feeling great. I'm not even sure exactly which play it happened on. But, Joe, I think we'd all agree that was the best game Porzingis has played in his 15 games as a Warrior. He was active. He was rushing the boards offensively. You're looking at a guy who was playing at a different level the other night against the Clippers than anything we had seen to this point.
I was ready to give him a 2-year deal knowing I would regret it, but the rim protection, the shooting, the synergy with Steph, the energy where he's pointing at him, he's hitting threes. Like, that was the full Kristaps experience on why you would buy in on him, knowing that he's an injury risk.
That was another moment where you go, okay, this can work. Now, I think, to your point, the biggest question anybody has is how much money is going to be there and who else is going to be out there over the course of the next few months. It's going to say, hey, Porzingis looked pretty good in that play-in game. Maybe we roll the dice. But it's the same thing the three of us have been talking about for a while. If you get Porzingis in any level of health out there on the floor and he continues to build that chemistry with Steph, it absolutely fits for what this group does.
All right, so Nick, Suns are a very different team somewhat than the team the Warriors saw in L.A. on Wednesday night. Just off the top, what are some of the biggest differences that this Suns team brings to the court that we did not see from the Clippers on Wednesday night?
Sammy, the thing I'm looking at with this Suns team tonight, and this is broader than one matchup or one guy, if you're Phoenix, you run the hell out of the Warriors. You run and you run and you do not stop running because you had an extra day. You know that the Warriors, for the reasons we just laid out with all the tweaks that guys have dealt with and how many minutes Steph played the other night in LA, if you're Phoenix and you're Jordan Ott and that coaching staff, you tell your guys, every single chance you get, push the ball. This team is running on fumes. There is that sense, at least of the people that have been around the Warriors, that as well as they played at the end of the game the other night, they had to expend so much energy to get to that point because they kept falling in those double-digit holes. It's why everybody was so proud walking around and leaving LA, because they knew what it took for them to get there. So I would expect Phoenix to push the pace all night and then see where they're at in the fourth quarter.
And then when it comes to the defensive assignments tonight, we're kind of kicking around the idea early, just who guards Brooks, who guards Booker, who guards Jalen Green. How do you see that maybe kind of opening up tonight with who's guarding who?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see which direction Kerr goes. Does he stick with that same starting lineup? I mean, Sammy, if I'm saying last night because everything feels like it's
I don't know what day of the week it is either, Nick. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been a long couple of days for everybody, but I would tell you, I think that, we could talk about who starts on whom. If Booker gets hot, Draymond's going to see him. If Gee is having a problem staying in front of fill in the blank, let's say Brooks for argument's sake, well, then they're going to mix and match. So I don't feel like, whoever starts up front, they're going to stick with them. The rotation's going to be small. We thought that going in. I mean, it was shorter than I even thought. I think tonight there's a chance that you might see, an extra body. I've always thought Seth makes sense, at least in shorter minutes, because of his ability to shoot from the outside and stretch things out. But Sammy, defensively, they're going to give Draymond whatever he wants and whatever big matchup he needs to kind of slow down. And I'd go back and say Kawhi in that matchup, not only did Draymond lock him up, what he did in those moments shows you why he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but the confidence that he gave everybody else with the way he performed defensively, in my mind, was gigantic down the stretch. I mean, we talk about the lift they have with Steph being back on the floor. If you have Draymond playing at that level and being that type of defender, anything is possible. So it's a long way of saying I think there'll be some mixing and matching tonight early, especially with the way that Phoenix may or may not start.
There are times in sports where there's a non-championship moment that kind of sticks out for someone at the end. And I'm not saying it's the first paragraph of their Wikipedia page. It's a little farther down. Belichick, regular season against the Bills in a storm where they don't throw the ball but one or two times in the game with a rookie Mac Jones, and he beats the Bills. Remember that game a couple years back, and everyone's saying this is why Belichick is the GOAT, And I just think in sports, and you've been covering it a long time, we do this thing, championships and anything that's not a championship just does not matter. I actually found it very refreshing to hear Steve Kerr goes, hey, for one night we're champions. And I felt him. I felt what he was saying. I know they've had bigger stages. I know they've had bigger moments. But boy, it felt like that might have been the Mona Lisa that Draymond Green painted toward the end of his career against Kawhi Leonard. And maybe there's another moment down the line. But that one's going to stick out for me. Tweaks the knee. He's taking them on. It's like 5 straight possessions. He's playing deny. And Kawhi, in the midst of his best season offensively, Draymond just completely stifles him.
Joe, it was one of the most impressive performances that I've seen in years. And to your point about how much it meant, even if it's in a play-in game, I couldn't agree with you anymore. They were celebrating so hard. I told our friend Marcus Thompson, my colleague at The Athletic, I said they were celebrating so hard it looked like they were just beating the Rockets again. It was that type of, oh, we did it. We got these guys. I think they know that time is running short in general. And the second, guys, that this game may or may not end, or they go to OKC and maybe that series ends in a couple weeks, they know the questions that are coming. Is Kerr coming back? Are they afraid that Draymond, because they're still trying to chase potentially one more star, are they afraid that he may be elsewhere still if he picks up that option, or does he want to work something else out? How much longer does Steph want to play? Joe, they're holding back time right now. They're pushing it back as long as they can. And they know they can still be great in smaller moments. And who knows what happens tonight. I mean, I'm never betting against Steph. It's why I thought they could go in there and win in LA the other night. I just feel like they might be a little out of gas given the way that game ended on Wednesday. But when you watch this team, there is a pride that they take to the floor. And we've talked about it throughout the season. The reason Steph came back is because he built the standard. It was Steph, it's Draymond, and it's Clay. They built it day after day, year after year. And no, they're not going to win a title this year. But, Joe, they will remember that game for a long, long time. When you have a champion that doesn't know if they can still do it and the world tells them, get out of here, it's not worth it, and Steph shouldn't be playing anyway, and then they do what they did, that's going to be with them for a while.
You wrote a story the other day. You chatted with Draymond Green and Steph Curry. You talked about 82 players versus 16 game players. I've been reading it the last few days. Very interesting piece. The question I have for you, just after your conversations with Steph and Draymond there about that subject, how would you define championship DNA, and how much do you think it matters in playoff games?
I think it matters a lot, Sammy, and here's why. A 16-game player, using Draymond and Steph's description, is a player who's not going to get swayed by the moment. They know that no matter what kind of circumstance they face in any game, they're not going to sit there and go, and go to the corner and just kind of disappear. And we've seen it far too many times with a vast variety of different players across the league. When you have a player that isn't afraid to play at a different level and can raise the level of his own game when his team needs him the most, you have a guy who fits and can help you win at any time. And for all the flack that Draymond got throughout the season, what he reminded everybody the other night was when there are stakes to the game and when there is something that matters within the game, he's going to show up and he's going to play at a level that he's played at in the biggest games throughout his career. So I know that there are people that say, he can't do it night to night and he's not the same player. Okay, fine. I mean, I watch just like everybody else. But if you have a game that you need to win or your season ends, the list is very, very, very small of the players that you would take above Draymond Green in those moments.
So I'm watching that game, and they go 8 subs in the first quarter. I mean, Kerr's calling timeouts like at the perfect time to kill momentum. They notice that Garland's got the 5 fouls. They're going to do off-ball screens to get the matchup they want in the paint to basically go up against a cone because he can't guard anyone. And they build a wall around Kawhi. I thought Kerr was masterful in this one. I thought the way he used his lineup was masterful. I know Kristaps and Horford and Steph and Draymond are going to get all the headlines. But to me, it was as much about the whole team, the Gees, the Podses, Melton with some winning moments, GP2 with some winning moments, Steve Kerr pulling every proper string. That was such an up-down team win, like truly a culture win for this team. If I were to go like Warrior culture, which I've laughed at, like I think that was emblematic of everything we've been writing and talking and hearing about for 15 years.
Joe, I can't agree with you anymore, and I would take it a step further. As I watched that game, what I kept thinking was Joe Lacob's sitting there, and he's watching right up front in L.A. I thought Kerr's getting a check off this game in the next deal and whatever happens this summer. And I've told you all repeatedly, I absolutely think Kerr's coming back at least for another year. And I think he showed one more time, and it ties into the Draymond conversation perfectly. I know there is a section of the fan base that's like, oh, Steve Kerr, give me a break. We've had enough. Look at how those guys responded in that moment. You know how many teams in a closeout game that would have gotten down double digits repeatedly and said, we're done. Let's go to Cancun. We've had it. The culture that Kerr has put in place, and he's put it in place with Steph and Draymond, and before he left to go to Dallas, Clay, is incredible. And it is something that you can't always see night to night, but it still shows up when they need it the most. And Joe, to exactly your point, when you have a team win, when you have guys, I mean, look at Guy. Like, Guy wasn't, nobody expected much out of anything in his NBA career. That guy has worked his butt off to get to this point. Pods has played so much better in the last 6 weeks or so of the season and has had to fight through all the adversity that we've talked about throughout the year. When you get guys who can play above their talent level at times, when you need them the most, you first point at the player because what they do is impressive and they put in that time, but you point at the coach. And those guys all respect the coach and they respect what's been built throughout this organization for so many years. And I think that is perfectly said. This was a culture win for what the Warriors have done in Steve Kerr's time. And if there was any doubt that at least that everybody wants to try and run this thing back and see what happens next year, Wednesday was the answer to that question.